You're standing in a clearing, midday sun, thick air, heavy with rot and pollen. Something enormous moves through the tree line ahead. You don't know what it is yet. You don't have a word for it. You have a heartbeat, a pair of flat teeth, and hands that were designed to grip branches. That's the entire inventory. No shoes, no antibiotics, no lighter, no blade, no signal flare. Just skin and instinct dropped into a world that spent millions of years perfecting ways to end things like you. So the real question isn't whether it's possible, it's how fast it goes wrong. Because the math here is brutal, and most people have no idea just how badly stacked against them the odds actually are. Let's start with what the day looks like before anything even tries to kill you. Dawn. Somewhere in the Pleistocene, roughly 50,000 years ago. The landscape is recognizable but wrong in every important detail. Forests denser, rivers wider. The predator density is something modern humans have no reference for. Africa today has lions, leopards, hyenas. The Pleistocene had all of that, plus cave lions, saber-tooths, short-faced bears, dire wolves, and giant hyenas hunting in coordinated packs. Every ecological niche that could support a predator had one, sometimes several competing for the same ground. A modern human dropped into that world doesn't bring tools, experience, or knowledge of the terrain. They bring confusion. That confusion alone is enough to get them killed before noon. The first problem isn't a predator, it's water. Within hours of arrival, dehydration begins. Every freshwater source in the Pleistocene is contested territory. Watering holes are where predators stage ambushes because prey animals are predictable near water. They have to drink. A modern human approaching a river in this period without knowing how to read animal sign, without knowing which side the wind is coming from, without knowing that the cave lion that controls this stretch of riverbank drinks at dusk and hunts everything else that comes close, is walking into a kill zone. Not metaphorically, literally. And the water itself, once obtained, is unsafe without boiling. No modern human dropped into prehistory knows how to start a fire from friction on the first attempt. Most can't do it on the 20th. Here's where the biology becomes genuinely humbling. A modern human hasn't changed meaningfully since the Pleistocene. The genome is essentially identical. The body is the same instrument, but the body doesn't come loaded with survival knowledge by default. It comes loaded with the capacity to learn survival knowledge. That distinction matters enormously. Early humans who navigated this landscape successfully did so because they had been trained from infancy inside communities that accumulated thousands of years of hard-won information. What plants caused paralysis? Which tracks meant a pack was close? How long after a kill the hyenas would move in? A modern human has none of that. They have internet search history and muscle memory for tasks that don't exist yet. Catastrophically under-equipped. Not as insult, as clinical assessment. By midday, exposure becomes the second axis of threat. The sun in the open Pleistocene landscape is direct and relentless. No sunscreen, no hat, no shade structure. Heatstroke begins at core temperatures just a few degrees above baseline. A modern human unused to sustained outdoor exposure without protective gear will be cognitively impaired by afternoon. And cognitive impairment is the one thing you absolutely cannot afford when every decision is a survival decision. That's the trap. The heat doesn't kill you directly. It makes you slow, confused, and careless. And the things that are watching you notice the change in your gait before you do. Smilodon fatalis didn't chase. That's important to understand. The saber-tooth was an ambush predator. 11-inch canines, 600 pounds of compacted muscle, and infinite patience. It found cover near game trails, and it waited, completely motionless, sometimes for hours. A modern human moving through unfamiliar terrain without tracking knowledge doesn't identify a game trail as a game trail. They see a path through the grass and follow it because it's easier than pushing through brush. That path is exactly where the saber-tooth is. It doesn't telegraph the attack. There's no warning sound, no dramatic moment of decision. The grass shifts. That's the last thing registered. From concealed position to contact, the strike takes less than a second. But suppose none of that has happened yet. Suppose it's late afternoon, and the modern human is still alive, thirsty, sunburned, frightened, but intact. Darkness is now the problem. Human night vision is poor under any conditions. In an environment without artificial light, without even the ambient glow of a city on the horizon, the darkness of a Pleistocene night is total. Eyes that spent years adjusted to screen brightness don't adapt quickly or effectively. What the cave hyena can detect by smell and low-light vision from 50 meters, the modern human cannot detect at all. Cave hyena packs numbered 20 or more animals. Bite force of over 1,000 pounds per square inch. They were not opportunists waiting for sick or wounded prey. They hunted healthy adult humans in coordinated groups, in the dark, when the prey couldn't see. The cooperative aspect of early human survival is the piece most modern thinking underestimates. No individual human in the Pleistocene survived alone. Not for long. Survival was collective by necessity, not philosophy. The knowledge base, the fire tending, the watch rotation through the night, the food sharing, the wound treatment, all of it required group coordination built over years of shared experience. A single modern human dropped into that world has no group. No one who knows their capabilities, no one who trusts them, no established communication patterns, no accumulated shared knowledge to draw from. Survival in prehistory wasn't about individual toughness. It was about embedded membership in a functioning social unit. Without that, the individual is prey. That's not metaphor. That's the archaeological record. Consider what fire actually meant to early humans beyond warmth. A controlled fire at night created a perimeter roughly 30 feet across that apex predators instinctively avoided. Even modern lions avoid open flame. That circle was the margin between sleeping and not waking up. Starting a fire from scratch using friction methods requires specific knowledge of which wood combinations work, correct technique applied consistently for several minutes, prepared tinder that must be absolutely dry, and the physical conditioning to maintain pressure and speed long enough to generate an ember. Most people attempting this for the first time, even with instruction, fail repeatedly. Without fire before dark, the modern human attempting one day in the Pleistocene has no perimeter, no safety zone, just tie darkness and everything that hunts in it. Short-faced bear, largest land predator in North America during the Pleistocene, 12 feet at full height, 2,000 pounds. Not an opportunist, not a scavenger by preference. A hyper-carnivore built for pursuit. It could run 40 miles per hour. The fastest recorded human sprint peaked at 27. There was no scenario in open terrain where distance was sufficient protection. The short-faced bear didn't require proximity to begin closing. It simply needed line of sight and the decision to move. Early humans who survived in North America during this period did so through knowledge, group tactics, fire, and the accumulated strategic intelligence of generations. None of those resources exist for the solo modern human arrival. The encounter ends one way. By nightfall, if the modern human has somehow avoided predator contact, avoided dehydration, avoided heat stroke, avoided injury, they face the final problem: cold. Pleistocene nights in temperate zones drop dramatically after dark. No shelter, no fire, no clothing beyond what they arrived in. No knowledge of where to find windbreak or thermal cover. Hypothermia begins to affect cognition before it affects the body. And once reasoning degrades, every small error compounds the next. The tracking skills they don't have become even less accessible. The fire starting technique they couldn't manage becomes physically impossible with hands that have lost fine motor control. One day. That's the question. Could a modern human survive one full rotation of the Pleistocene world? Not thrive, not hunt, just survive until the next sunrise. The honest answer is that the odds collapse at almost every decision point. Not because modern humans are weaker in any fundamental biological sense, but because the Pleistocene didn't require physical strength as its first demand. It required embedded knowledge, community membership, and years of accumulated environmental learning that no single person can carry alone. The animals that killed apex predators and dismantled entire continental ecosystems didn't do it as individuals. They did it as a networked, knowledge-sharing, strategically coordinated species. Strip that away, and what remains is exactly what we were before we built it. Slow, exposed, nearly blind in the dark, and completely unprepared for what that world had already perfected over millions of years. That's what humans are without each other.